I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
Breaking Bad. You know it, I know it, we all know it. The critically acclaimed show that everyone and their mamas agree is one of, if not the greatest show of all time. But is it really though? Let's find out. Breaking Bad is a gripping crime drama that follows Walter White, a high school chemistry teacher turned methamphetamine manufacturer, as he partners with former student Jesse Pinkman to navigate the dangerous worlds of drugs and crime. Driven by personal circumstances, Walter uses his scientific expertise to create a product of unparalleled purity. The show explores themes of morality, family, power, and the consequences of one's choices, all set against a backdrop of escalating tension and danger. So a few of the major critiques I found were on pacing and apparently on one-dimensional characters. When it comes to the pacing, some people think that the show drags on too much and that it just spends unnecessary time on things that it really shouldn't, aka can get lost in small details, while others see it more as a slow burn where it's methodical and deliberate. You see, Vince Gilligan designed the show this way. This is the direction he took it because he wanted to focus more on building tension and unease, and then less about fast-paced plot twists and actions. Personally, I feel like the pacing actually adds to the show's realism. It makes more of those intense moments that much more impactful, but I do understand why the pacing could get some people to not like it. Trust me, I'm a One Piece fan, so if you know One Piece, you know that pacing is one of the biggest things that it sucks at. But this isn't One Piece, so I feel like pacing really isn't something that's like an issue, personally. The other criticism that I found really funny was that the characters are very one-dimensional. Take Walter White, for example. A lot of people say that his transformation happens too quickly. I feel like this criticism can be pretty unfair due to the fact that I think Bryan Cranston's acting was very nuanced. You can see Walter's wheels turning in his head as the show goes on and he turns into the drug lord that he is, or that he becomes. The transformation is slow, gradual, and terrifying to watch. This goes for a lot of the supporting cast too. Like, take my favorite character, for example, Jesse Pinkman, played by actor Aaron Paul, as his character struggles with morality and addiction. But aside from being my favorite character in the show, his performance I thought was the standout in the series. There's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to Breaking Bad. For example, take moral dilemma. The show presents a lot of moral dilemmas that really challenge your beliefs. It raises questions like, would you have done what Walter White did if you were in his position to provide for loved ones? This is where a lot of that moral gray area comes into play. It's really easy to judge Walter from a distance, but understanding his harsh realities is what really complicates the judgment, you know? It forces you to confront your own biases. And it's not just Walt. There are multiple different characters in the show that really show this trait. You have characters like Gus, you have characters like Mike, Saul. All these different characters have their own reasons for being where they are. So this is where that moral gray area kind of fades for me. In terms for Walter White. See, Walter starts making enough money. I guess this is where I should say spoilers ahead for the rest of the video. But Walt doesn't settle after making good money. In fact, he actually pushes to go even further beyond. His motivation changes from wanting to provide for his family to being the very best. Essentially, his drive becomes by any means necessary. And this is exactly where I lose all sympathy for Walter White. But I don't necessarily dislike him. In fact, I think he's actually really good because of this. I think this is where the transformation begins, and I think it fit perfectly because if you think about it, he started out as a quote-unquote loser. He was working a low-income job as a chemistry teacher in high school. He was really looked down on by a lot of his family, especially Hank, and he felt worthless. But after his diagnosis, he found success in drugs, and that's where his ego took over. Walt's ego. See, that in itself deserves its own video. But Walt's ego has been shown multiple different times throughout the show. Take the family lunch scene, for example. They're all sitting at a table, Hank on one side, Walt on the other. Hank says the mastermind, Heisenberg, was actually Gale. Walt's ego couldn't take that, so he subtly challenges Hank, suggesting that Gale wasn't the real Heisenberg, implying that the real one is still at large. This is to Walt's detriment, and it actually leads to Hank realizing Gale wasn't the mastermind. That's just one of the different many times that Walt shows his ego. And the thing about his ego is sometimes he doesn't care if it's to his detriment. See, Breaking Bad had lots of very memorable characters. You got people like Hank, Jesse, Gus, just to name a few. Hank was persistent. determined. He had to find Heisenberg no matter what. He wasn't my favorite character by any means, but I do like the fact that he's a character who is very similar to Walter. Although they are on the opposite sides, they both operate on a whatever the cost basis, and most importantly, their pride and ego. Hank was similar to Walt in that aspect. He had a very high ego as well. Now let's talk about Jesse, my favorite character in the show. Someone who I also believe deserves his own video in and of itself. And I just think that his character is incredibly well written. One of my favorite moments was when Jesse was forced to shoot and kill Gale. You can see it in his eyes as he slowly starts to cry the more he stands there in front of Gale. He hesitates for exactly 50 seconds and then pulls the trigger. It was really such a heartbreaking moment for his character, one of many unfortunately. And then last but not least, Gus Fring. Giancarlo Esposito really delivered a chilling performance with this character. You can argue that he's one of the best villains in fiction. He's cold, he's calculated, and he's very business oriented. But don't let that fool you. Over time, his intense vengeance, hatred, and cruelty are all revealed. You see, his hatred is not impulsive. Every action is methodical. His hatred is aimed at dismantling the cartel, destroying the Salamanca family, and securing his power, all driven by revenge for Max's death. More specifically, his hatred is towards Hector. Hector is the one who murdered him right in front of Gus, so that makes him Gus's main target. Gus spent years plotting and systematically dismantling Hector's influence. See, even after Gus's death, his presence can still be felt throughout the rest of the show. So with all of that being said, I think we can safely say that Breaking Bad is a show that's more than worthy of its hype. With its slow burning tension, complex characters, and thought-provoking themes, it's a series that really does deserve its legendary status. But I think what really gets to the heart of Breaking Bad's enduring appeal is its focus on character transformation. I mean, we watch Walter go from this meek, unassuming guy to a ruthless, cunning criminal. It's a truly terrifying transformation, and one that's both captivating and repellent at the same time. And it's not just Walter either. Jesse struggles with addiction, Skyler's complicity in Walter's schemes, Hank's dogged determination. Every character undergoes some kind of significant change over the course of the series, and it's amazing to watch, making it my 4th favorite show of all time. But anyway, thanks so much guys for watching. Like the video, subscribe, dislike if you disliked. Peace.